You are now listening to the Serious Growth Podcast with your host, Leo Costa Jr.
Welcome to Serious Growth Podcast, where the truth is told. On today's show, we have a gentleman named Liston. Hey, thanks for coming on, Lee. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Beautiful. I really like your story. I see here that you're an actor, which intrigued me already because I did some small stuff way back in the day. Fitness enthusiast, singer, and songwriter. I find those to be very interesting areas that you want to get into. So let me ask you this: how is it that you want to be all these things? What's the launching pad for you? Tell me all about you.
The big launching pad for me is being able to be a representative for little people.
Okay.
Because I feel like little people have representation. Like you look at Peter Dinklage, who's a phenomenal actor, Game of Thrones, and among other things. And you have Warwick Davis, who was in Willow, and you have Billy Barty, who was also in Willow, who started Little People of America. So everything that I do, like music and acting, and obviously it's first and foremost storytelling, but what I love to do is move into being a representative to show what little people are just as normal and average as everybody else, even though I'm in an extraordinary platform.
Yeah, I can tell right off the bat, just in the first 30 seconds, that you're very passionate about what you're doing. I mean, that's obvious, and that's a big difference in, for mine now. I'm quite a bit older than you, and one of the things that stands out to me always is somebody who has passion for what they do, and it's obvious that that's where you're at. So, what got you into weight training, or got you into the gym?
Originally, I was just sitting on Instagram, and I'm a fan of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and I saw that he had a show that he was promoting called the Titan Games, and it was really ominous at the time. Nobody knew what it was or what it was. Just it was The Rock, so everybody wanted to be a part of it, and I kind of got that hype. So I watched it, and there was a training regimen that they wanted you to do for the audition. So I went hard, and I trained for 8 months, and I started eating really clean and really healthy and training every day, 2 times a day. And I was just so gung-ho. And so over time, it exploded into other things, in which I could talk about. But ultimately, it's just become a lifestyle of different things and factors.
So how did you learn how to train and eat and all that?
Well, as far as eating, and which is one of the most core things of it all, I had a roommate named Adam Knutson, and he taught me how to count macros. He taught me how to weigh foods. He taught me about proteins, fats, and carbs. He taught me how to read labels, and I started, integrating that and using my MyFitnessPal into my everyday life. And I started to learn about caloric maintenance range, which led to learning how to get the body where I wanted to get, the physique I wanted. So it's almost like, you hit a domino and it starts to go, and all those things follow suit.
Yeah. And the thing that you're hitting on, which is, I've been in the industry, the health and fitness industry and personal training, but I started as a bodybuilder. But the one thing that I learned right off the bat was it's about calories in, calories out. It's caloric intake. And a lot of people just don't understand that. And then on top of that, the industry misleads people. For example, they tell you, they make you stupid for one thing. We're going to do it all for you. I understand that people like convenience. I'm not saying that either, but it also makes the person at the, you're now at their mercy, because they really haven't taught you anything. And you learned it in a way that you were teaching yourself the exact way. And, when you start doing things like that, obviously to the nth degree, I have what I call a serious growth creed. And there's 6 components in that creed, and it's for training, but it also transcends into life. But one of the things is being a student of the game. And what you did is you automatically, your friend turned you on in the right way, because what it made you as a student of the game to really understand the macros and the caloric intake, because that way you can make exact adjustments to get a response that you want. Is that true or not?
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's like what I love that you're saying, it's authenticity, because I feel like the fitness knows something and it pitches it in a way that they need a trainer, they need the person, and it's not about enabling. It's
Yep.
you, you know about the fitness industry. I could go on, and so it's just crazy. I love the way that I got to learn was self-empowering and self-enabling, and not at the mercy, like you're saying, of someone else.
Yeah, and one of the things, and like even at my facility, I've had personal training studios for 38 years now. But one of the things I've always stated was I don't want to make those people have to rely on me. If they do, if they keep coming back, and I have clients that have been with me for over 20 years, and that's great. But I want to teach them to be successful beyond me. That's how I think my mark as far as being a good program, it really is. And yet, these quick fix programs, they're designed to fail because they have no infrastructure, because they're not really teaching people anything. If you take a look at the stats, people buy those programs until they lose the weight, and then 8 months down the road, they're in worse shape than when they started. So you are doing it exactly how you should. Now, when it came to the training part of it, was it the same way? How did you get references, or as to where did you start? Did you have a friend help you with that too?
Yeah, so this same friend helped me work out. He took me to the gym and started
Yeah.
teaching me about working out. And obviously, over time, I didn't get on the Titan Games, but the reason I say that is I went to FitCon and I met these bodybuilders like Calvin Von Moger. Later, I met Steve Cook,
Yeah.
and worked with Gymshark on a video, and did these things and started like getting this exposure, not only for myself, but exposure to the industry. You start meeting these people. So the fun part about working out for me was the creative aspect. When I said earlier, making it accessible for little people, because something as an example, and it took me about a year to figure this out. So when I go to the gym and I do the bench press, one thing, when I get on the bench press, my legs don't touch the ground, right? Like they're dangling. So and at first I was like, okay, well, this is just how it is. This is just what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But then over time, I had this like eureka moment, and I was looking at a squat rack, and what I did is the rungs go all the way down to the squat rack. I got a little step, and then put the step as the bench so my feet can hit the ground, and then I was able to do the bench all by myself. So it's just been this crazy awesome journey of being able to make the gym accessible and work, and not really have an excuse to not get the most out of it.
I really think that's huge. And I've talked about this before, is that the motivation has to be greater than the obstacle. The gym, the bench, the way it was the obstacle, but you had a higher motivation. And I personally, I think that that's like a key, as a life lesson that you learn, because guess what? Life is going to test you all the time and in different ways. It's a series of tests all the way through. Albert Einstein once said it best. He said, the real knowledge is through experience, and I look back at when I started and look now, and I just see things are just relative and that are actually necessary. It doesn't matter that you're much younger than I am. Those are kind of like, those are life lessons and principles that you need to implement throughout your life. And I'm assuming you're pretty young. How old are you?
I'm 27.
Yeah, you're pretty young, and you're already learning all this kind of stuff, and I would think that because of you being a little person, you've had to you're getting you have to figure it out like right now. Let me ask you this though, when you're doing the bench, wouldn't it work for you like if you just put your feet on top of the bench itself, or does that not work?
Well, essentially, like it kind of could, but I kind of like to be able to like it almost be compensating, but I like to be able to drive with my legs.
Oh yeah.
And so like it's almost like I'm getting, because it's the same idea as why aren't average size people doing that? It's because you're driving, getting that power through your legs, and that's the purpose of it. So
right. No, that makes sense. So when you first, how many years ago did you get into the gym?
About 2 years ago.
Okay, so you're pretty new at it. I think I read on social media somewhere that the part of the reason that you got into the gym is because it made you feel more equal. Did I get that right?
Yeah. No, that's a huge. I haven't thought about that for a while. Because a huge thing for me. So if you and I were to go to Walmart or Target or the mall or whatever, I get stared at all the time,
Yeah.
because of my dwarfism. It's very unique and it stands out and it's weird. It's normal enough to maintain a normal life, but it's weird enough that people, pay attention when I walk in the room,
Right.
whether I want it or not. And
Right.
that almost sounds egotistical, but
No, I get you. Yeah.
yeah. So if we go to a mall, I get attention. But the thing is when I started to go to the gym, I started getting the same respect that anybody else has. I was getting buff, and because of my genetics and things, I gained muscle a little bit faster, and so I was getting attention. And so I just felt like everybody else. I could relate. I could talk about things. My dwarfism wasn't a factor. It was, it was just, it was a liberating thing, and I wasn't being stared at in a negative way.
Yeah. Yeah, the gym does that. When you get inside of a gym environment. I'm still a member at Gold's Gym in Venice, California, and no, that's what's one of the things I really like about being in the gym is that it's like my home. It's my second home, and over the years, the inside of that there's a lot of camaraderie there, and you're right. It's just something that all the people that are in there, we all have in common to some degree. So it's a different kind of vibe. That's pretty cool. Now, as far as I even noticed that, when I read some of your stuff on social media, you actually have this thing down to how many calories you actually ate. Now, did you do you did a competition, right? Or did you get ready for a competition?
Yeah. So it was kind of a rock and a hard place because I'm a perfectionist. If I'm going to do something, I want to do it perfect and to get the best result. I don't want to just do it for the sake of it, which begs the question, okay, what are you accomplishing? Because but I was gonna do one, but I couldn't afford a nutritionist and a posing coach.
Yeah.
So I got the most out of fitness, and I developed all the learning. But I was like, I only want to compete if I can get a posing coach and if I can get a nutritionist, because ultimately, I could do it myself, but you're not going to see your body in poses the same way a coach is going to see it. So it wasn't the right time. And I don't feel like I lost anything by not doing that, but I feel like I still gained a lot out of the whole experience.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I learned this thing from the ground up, kind of like you. I was lucky that I met people along the way. I had a mentor of mine in the beginning, who's my business partner to this day. And he helped me because he competed once, but there was someone I could refer to, and of course, as you go along, but something, Lee, there's a reason why in the sport of bodybuilding that it takes so damn long to get up on stage to where you look right, balanced and all that, because you're right, man. It's I didn't know a couple things about myself. I don't know about you. I didn't know I was a creative person. I've been an athlete all my life, ever since I was 8 years old. Played traditional type sports, but bodybuilding entered my life at the age of 25. And I didn't realize that I was creative until I got into the sport of bodybuilding, because it's a creative act, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, man. There's so much to it that doesn't meet the eye. I mean, that's not unusual in a lot of other industries. And I can share a story with you in acting, but there's more to it than meets the eye. And you're absolutely right. I was lucky that I had somebody to get me going, but all the hours in between, I mean, you compete in that one show and you've got a whole off season to correct your shortcomings, because you're always trying to improve that. Well, yeah, it takes a long time to be perfect on stage. And truth of the matter is, none of those guys, not even at the Olympia level, not even Arnold Schwarzenegger, and those guys that won all these Olympias are perfect. They look perfect, but I promise you, they still have flaws. What they've learned how to do through learning how to pose is they learn how to minimize their weaknesses, if you will, which makes them look perfect. So I don't know if that makes any difference to you as far as if and when you do compete, but know that we all have flaws, and we do, even at the end of our career, but we just get better at knowing how to show ourselves, if you will. So So where are you going with, when I was training, I trained a guy by the name of Kevin Costner. I don't know if you know who he is.
Oh, yeah, I know
Yeah.
who Kevin
Some
Costner
people
is.
don't, believe it or not. Some people
Wow.
don't. I know. Anyway, so one of the things that he told me, because this is with regard to you now being in the industry as far as wanting to act and things like that. When I went down there to train Kevin, and we had some prior history in that he came to we were at the same high school together when we were 18 years old, and he left. And then he reappeared in The Untouchables, and that's when I reconnected with him. So when I went down there because I told him I had just written a training course and I wanted him to endorse my book if he thought it was any good. I just asked him flat out what I wanted. And he said, "Oh, you know what? It just happens I'm getting ready to work on Dances with Wolves." I'm sure you heard of that.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So I went down there. One of the first things that he told me was, he said, "Leo, you have to understand something. I cannot change. I have a certain look that I'm known for on camera. And, if you put on a few pounds on me, it changes my look." Now, are you kind of aware of this, like as you're going along? And I mean, I don't know if you figured out like exactly where you want to go, but Kevin already knew at that point. I mean, he was adamant. He said, "If you're going to mess with that, you can't work with me because that screws things up." I never even thought about that. So how does that relate to you?
Wow, that kind of hits me in the feels, because one of the things I think about is, I've talked about him like 12 times, but with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, for instance, he's, lifting. He's got his iron, Paradise gyms that he has, his traveling gyms, and he's kind of made it his brand that he's the workout actor,
Right.
So he's like embraced that. And so for me, like, I had a friend named Mason Davis one time, and we were going to do a film. Like, he wanted to do it, and he's done like a lot of films. He's, SAG and stuff like that. And he wanted to do a film together. And one of the things he asked me, he goes, "Lee, are you okay with losing muscle? Like, would you be okay, like, losing muscle?" And like, it almost made me twinge, because everything we've talked about for the past like 20 or so minutes has been around fitness and lifting. And given I've only done it for 2 years, like, I can't imagine taking that out of my life. And so for me, as hard as it is, it's like, no, I want to embrace that. I want to be, authentic in my journey, and talk about how lifting correlates with acting and how it kind of all intermeshes, because I just feel like ultimately my goal isn't just being a branded actor, but it's being a representative with my talents for little people, and inspiring them and uplifting them.
I like that. And one thing that I can maybe share with you and relate to you is that in the sport of bodybuilding, we have to, you have these different judges at these competitions. And you get to a point when you've been around long enough, you start knowing the judges that are going to be at these competitions. And you start learning what they're actually looking for. It just, again, there's always more than meets the eye, right? But here's the thing that we had to be willing to do, and it's very uncomfortable, and it's going to what you're talking about. There were certain competitions that I was in where I actually had to lose more muscle than I wanted to have a certain look for the judges that were going to be there. And, and I get what you're saying, because I think like with Dwayne Johnson being the example, you don't see many guys that can actually, this guy, I think he's a lucky guy. Myself, he gets to train and look like he does, and he's not pigeonholed necessarily in the gigs that he gets, right? Yeah, so I mean, I think that's been a really tricky thing that he's done, and good for him. And it sounds like that's, you want to do it for not only that reason, but I think maybe, I guess what I'm saying is that you might have to be comfortable enough and say, okay, I may have to create a certain look, or maybe you take the stand and say, no, this is who I am, like it or not. And there you go. I think at some point, I don't know if you'll have to make that choice. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. It's a funny thing. It's kind of like, when you're hanging out with a friend, and and it's a pretty girl, and you're like, man, I'm gonna go talk to her. This is what I'm gonna say, and you work it out in your head, and you're like talking it up, and you rehearse it, or or you feel confident. Maybe you're arrogant and you feel good, and then you go up to execute, thinking it's gonna play out a certain way because you're so good or suave or whatever you think you are, and you go up, and then all of a sudden, like, it fails or debunks or doesn't go that way, or you kind of shrivel up, or you say the wrong thing, or you totally lose it. I think that's the kind of thing I'm scared of, is, of course, like just talking, in a public setting, I can be like, oh yeah, of course that's what I would say. But behind a closed door, like in, a Marvel executive office, they're like, we're not going to give you this movie if you don't do this.
Right.
But like, it's like that's what I get scared of. What I have the grit, to be able to be like, well, I don't care. Or would I be like, okay, yeah, I'll do what you want. Right. So that's what I think about, is the big moments, of that.
Yeah. And that's reality. And maybe I can, again, I like to relate with what you're saying in a different area. It's kind of like with me, when I first got into the, my gyms were all personal training. I used to have a bunch of them. I just have one now, but it's always been personal training. It's always been very specific to the individual. But when I first started my business, Lee, I took everybody that I could because I wanted to launch my business. And, at that point, that it would be the difference in the beginning of me saying, look, I'm just going to take everybody versus I'm just going to take athletes or professional athletes. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would have made it if I just would have had that mindset. I'm just going to do professional athletes and no one else. However, as I stayed in the game and I developed a foundation and I had some cash flow makes you happy, man. I'm sure you know that. It's happiness. Yeah. It's happiness. Well, right. when I started getting to that point, then I could be more selective. But I don't know, how much room that you have in your industry, to take that approach. In other words, like what you're saying, is it like, okay, I'll take whatever I can, but then, I'm assuming that you have to be worried about getting pigeonholed as like a certain type of actor, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And once again, it's like, because what you're talking about, you're kind of slowly isolating my dilemma, if you will, of, my dwarfism, because I don't want to get all the dwarfism caricature roles.
Right.
I don't want to get all the bodybuilder, Arnold Schwarzenegger, action movie roles.
Right.
And I don't want to get, or maybe based on how I act in one movie, my personality comes off. They're like, kind of like, let's say Robert Downey Jr., like now, he's in Doolittle now, and that movie's doing awful. And that dude just did an 11-year franchise of the biggest, did Avengers Endgame and like the biggest movie of like all time right now, financially, and now like Doolittle's doing awful. And so it's just nobody's safe, from,
that's right.
It's like The Rock's not safe. Like they're not safe. So you kind of have to constantly be on your toes and be humble. And I think if you stay humble enough to know that you're not safe, even though that's scary, it'll keep you adaptable and flexible to what it is. I don't know if I'm dancing around the question, but I definitely, just to answer directly, yes, I do have quite the challenge to make a name for myself in the way that I want to.
Yeah. And something that we talked about that at the top of the show, it's like life is always going to test you. And this is one of the key examples is right here. And at some point, I believe in your career, you're going to have to make that tough call and say, yeah, I'm not going to do that because I just don't, I stand for something bigger, and it may or may not work out for you. But guess what? That's just the way it is. That's life. It's not always a rosy little trot to the top. There's a lot of pitfalls, and I'm sure I don't know where you are as far as like how many auditions have you gone on, for example?
That's like how many auditions? Well, I've probably gone, I've never been asked that before. So I'm like thinking,
I'm glad I'm the first.
No, you really are the first. I'm like thinking, I don't know, hundreds, like, or maybe over 100. I don't know. Like I have, that's almost a humbling question, because I'm going to be honest, like I haven't gone on as many auditions is I want to have said that, you know, that I should be, because I get so excited about whatever I'm out, and I should be going to audition after audition after audition, but then I'm like, oh, I found fitness and I got all excited about that. And so I need to kind of move back into, you're asking a very direct question. I need to get back into auditioning to build, you know, to get my name circulating back in the industry again.
You know, one of the things I learned in training, and again, I'm playing to what you're saying, I think, in my own little crazy way, is that multitasking, you know, as humans, we can multitask. It's part of our DNA, and it's in our, you know, in our fight or flight nervous system, because that's the way that your body learns how to tolerate environments. So it does a good job multitasking, but it doesn't do a great job multitasking, because it does a better job when you focus on one thing. And it's tricky, because, you know, you don't want to just focus on one thing. But I think the way that I've overcome that, I have a tendency of being like you. I get crazy because I'm very passionate about what I do, to the point where I make myself ill over it. You know, I get so wound up, it's hard to calm down. So I get what you're saying. But one of the things that I learned with me to help me is because my mentality and my mindset can be harmful to me, Lee, because I overtrain. Like, for example, in the gym, I have this mindset where nothing's going to stop me ever. But if you don't channel that in a certain way, it can hurt you. And one of the things that I learned over the years is to compartmentalize the things that I do. In other words, I'm going to focus on this and give it its due, but then I got to walk away from that a little bit so I can focus on this. Because if I do both of those things, guess what? I'm going to compromise both of those things. It's tricky. It always is, you know. And you got to. I think you're smart in that you're at least becoming, or you're aware of the fact and say, wait a minute, okay, I got to I keep asking the questions over the years. Now I'm 38 years in the industry. I keep asking myself, how am I beneficial to the health and fitness industry now, after all these years? Because I started as a bodybuilder, personal trainer, and I've written courses, and I've become somebody who has all this information because I put my time in. And I'm not useful in the industry, as far as I'm concerned, of getting out there and getting in the gym and posing and, you know, showing people how I'm working out. I'm not. I don't feel like that's where I fit in now. But it was a tricky question. It's like I didn't really know until I thought, wait a minute. The thing that I think I have that's valuable is the fact that I have been around for so long, and I know what I'm talking about, and I can pass that information forward. But the reason why I was asking you about auditions is because I flashed on after I trained Kevin, he called me one day, and he said, hey, you want to audition for the what was the movie he did with what's the name of the movie? Can't think of it right now. With Whitney Houston.
I can look it up.
I don't know why I forget this stuff. I mean, anyway, the point is this: I did it was the movie that she did with Kevin Costner.
Okay.
And he asked me if I wanted to audition for a part. I said, yeah, I want to be a movie star. You know, it sounded really luxurious and fun. Bodyguard, The Bodyguard. I auditioned for that crazy movie.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So I go, yeah, Kevin, I do. So anyway, their production company sent me my lines, Lee. Hey, it was only like 20 words. It wasn't very much. I'm thinking, oh man, this is a snap. So I live 200 miles away from from LA. So I'm practicing my lines all the way down there, blah, blah, blah. I got this thing. This is no big deal. This is easy. It's kind of like, it reminds me of people that when they see me or in the gym, you know, they go, what's so hard about all this weight training that you're doing, right? So I went in and I go in there to do my audition. They said, you ready? You got your lines? Yes. Okay. Producer or whoever comes in, ready, action. I choked so badly. I said, wait a minute. I said, let me do this again. A do-over. I choked just as bad on the do-over as I did on the first one. And I learned right there. I said, you know what? Those guys that are on screen that makes this stuff look easy, as far as I'm concerned, that is, again, more than meets the eye. Would you say that? I mean, when you did your first audition, did it go like smooth as silk, or was it bad?
Well,
Share us.
Well, I remember I was with this talent agency at the time, and it was the first agency that I was with, and I and you kind of get gung ho because I just want to interject real quick if I can. And talking to you, I feel like I'm talking to an old friend that I've like known for a long time.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I just want to learn like our energy. Like I think what's so relate that you and I can just sit there and talk back and forth is our energy is just so like palpable and awesome.
Yeah.
But going back to it, I was with this agency and I was really excited because a friend had got me into acting and told me I would be a great actor, and I've been told by other people. So I'm in here and it's this audition for Tyler Perry's movies. Like all of Tyler Perry's movies. And that sounds super random, but I was like, at the time, it's a name I was familiar with. And I was like, okay, I'm going to audition. I'm going to get it. So there was a scene from like Star Trek and he directed the first one, I believe, or he was involved with it.
Yeah.
And regardless, I went and did these lines and like I memorized this scene from it because I obviously I'm not someone of color, so I was like, okay, this is the one I can kind of relate and interject myself in a realistic way in. And so I went in and did that line and I did the audition, and it was awful, like it was embarrassing, and then I just it just didn't go anywhere, and I was like, wow, ego, gotta watch that, because when you have a super animated energy and you feel like you can do anything, that's awesome, but you also want to keep your feet on the ground so you're realistic with what's going on. And kind of going with what you're saying is what I imagine is when you got off that audition, you go home and watch a film, or you go home and watch a Kevin Costner film, you all of a sudden appreciate what they're doing 10 times more because you just went through the ringer of butchering it, if you will.
Yeah. No, when I left that audition, let me be clear. When I left that audition, my tail was between my legs, Lee, because I'm thinking, I was like, I have all this energy. I have 10 or 20 words that I'm going to say. And then I got so kiboshed, I choked up. I have to tell you something. That damn audition, it affected me when I started shooting videos for our training courses. I swear to you. I mean, I'd never forget that first time that we did that first video. I had to do 32 takes just to get a little piece out there because my energy wasn't right. I didn't say that word where everybody can understand it. I slurred it a little bit. I mean, there's so many things that I'm thinking, oh man, this thing ruined me forever, but I will say this, I've gotten a hell of a lot better. I mean, it's like in the Serious Growth Creed, one of the principles is repetition is the mother of skill. And it's the same way when you go into the gym. The reason why you can put on muscle is because of repetition being the mother of skill. You're in there doing it over and over again. Your body responds to that. Well, it's no different as far as I'm concerned. I thought, okay, here's how I'm going to get over this crazy stuff. Every time I get in front of a camera now, I flash back to the bodyguard and when I choked. I mean, it hit me pretty hard.
Right.
And I thought the only way I can get over this is kind of like the way that I got over the fear of flying. I just put myself on airplanes. I started flying until I got over it, and I just started doing that in front of a camera. I'm pretty comfortable now in front of a camera. I do Instagram posts, but through that repetition, it's made that thing easier to do. But man, yeah, you're right. When I walked away from that thing, I thought, oh, hell no, these guys they're good. To be able to, how about like when they're doing a love scene, stuff like that. I mean, it's not a legit love scene, I don't think. And they're making it look like one, for example. I mean, that's a real pro as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And there's just so many factors that go into it. And sometimes it's kind of a weird balance because you don't want to go into a situation like that thinking like, after that going, well, now I'll never be able to do it, or I'm not good enough, or shooting yourself in the foot every time you have an opportunity because you're like, well, I did really bad that one time. I'm never going to do it again. And so it's, but also being humble enough to go, what did I learn? Where am I actually at?
Right.
And then also one of the great things that I think is I imagine like talking to Kevin Costner, like talking to the people that you've associated through fitness or wherever throughout the industries, is you kind of learn about their horror stories. You learn where they came from, and you're like, oh, okay, you're relatable and real.
Yeah.
And it's not just, you weren't born this, prodigy of, what you did. And maybe you have some natural talent, but it's not all there.
That you're exactly right. And listen, and all that the audition really did for me, and at the end of the day, was it let me know that I really didn't want to be an actor. I like the idea of it more. Just like the people that have come to me over the years that have said, because I've competed a lot of times now on stage, and we have to go through the same thing with judges. You get rejected. And so I've been rejected a lot over the years because you don't come in quite in the condition that you were hoping for or whatever. So it's a form of rejection, but the motivation to do to do that next show was greater than the obstacle. Auditioning and wanting to be an actor, I really didn't want that. Just like most people come to me and they say, I want to compete. They really like the idea of it more than the actual reality of having to put in thousands of hours of work to get that done. So that's all that did for me. But you're right about that. And it sounds like, with you, you're willing to tolerate that because that's something that you really, really want to do.
Yeah. And I just love, I love going, I love the feeling, I love storytelling, and I love being inspired by different people, right? Like I get inspired by The Rock through fitness. I get inspired by Ewan McGregor with his acting, and Big Fish is one of my favorite movies of all time that I watch, and I get really emotional over it because, like the journey of life and all together. So I think the biggest thing that I and it's kind of cliche, but at the end of my days, I want to say that I lived, and not that I was unhappy or I was like, well, this is what I can do, so this is what I'm going to do. It's like, but what do you want to do?
Exactly.
And these kind of things. And so, and I imagine, it's kind of resonating with me because you're kind of talking to me when I was in that mindset of, maybe I should have just had a little more faith that if I pushed through and I invested in getting, a nutritionist, I invested in getting an opposing coach that maybe I wouldn't do so well, but maybe I'd get sponsored so I'd be able to move on to the next, like having a little more faith in myself and kind of, because it's kind of like you talking so real kind of brings those insecurities to the surface.
Yes.
You're like, oh, there it is. That's why I didn't do it. That's really why I didn't do it. That was my excuse that I didn't do that. But I was just scared that it wouldn't, because of this, and this, and this, and
yeah,
so,
but
yeah,
I tell you what I think is important though, Lee. I think it's important that because that experience that you're talking about is going to happen no matter what. You're going to have to go through that, and you're going to be asking yourself those questions along the way. And I just think that it's really important. And from my perspective, and you're going down this pathway, whatever that may be, I think that it's really important to look back before you can move forward. I think that the difference is with some people is when they look back, they get stuck in the past and they can't pull themselves out of it, and yet you got to look back because that tells you possibly things that you can do now that you're moving forward. So I think, and it's easier said than done, for goodness sake, but I think that that's kind of the reality. I think it's important for people to know that there's a reality to the stuff that we're doing, whether it be acting or training. There's a lot of pitfalls along the way. And you're right. The guys like the Kevin Costners of the world, they're not one take, I'll go in and just one take this thing and go. They have had to live through this thing just like everybody else has. It's good to know. It makes it a little more palatable. But I was still scared as hell when I got on camera after that stupid audition. So you were on a program called This Life or This Little Life?
My Little Life.
My Little Life. That was a TLC?
Yes.
So what character were you in that particular?
Well, with this one, this is kind of like, once again, we're going to a different industry. It's going into, it's a reality show.
Okay.
So it was a reality show. And the fun part about this is the goal of the show was to show the lives of little people that are young and in their youth, kind of up and coming, because a lot of the shows that, have come out kind of revolve around like older people or families, but this one was more around individuals. So basically they flew out and they wanted to cast my life, and they interviewed me and wanted to see where I was at in life and what I was doing with my life, and then kind of wrote their goals and got the producers together. It was an intense experience. Like overall, I'm kind of, that was like 4 years ago. So yeah, no.
Let me ask you this as a follow-up question. Intense experience. Go ahead and elaborate a little bit. I'm going to ask you, did you have a camera, on the side of you or following you around the whole time? And did you have lines, or was it more like, okay, this is what we're looking for, just make it your own? Or was it like, here's your lines and then make it your own? How did that work out like that?
So, well, first of all, it was an intense experience because I learned a lot about television really quick because, and I was very vulnerable, which I've always been an advocate for that, but they will use that, to get what they want, because you're ultimately a selling point.
Yeah.
And as much as you want to, feel careful, but sorry, I can get really deep into the
that's
psychology.
Okay. No, I want that. I like that. I like that kind of stuff, but don't hold back.
So with it, what would happen is obviously they learned and they cast me in the show because they liked my personality or what I was doing, and they liked the narrative that they were able to construct, from that, because that's what they're doing. And so they would come here, and one of the craziest parts, I'll tell you, one of the craziest. So in the show, I'm chasing a girl named Bailey. She was my best friend at the time, and I brought her in, and I liked her a lot, and I was trying to court her, and I was like, and I did a dumb thing, and I was like, oh, maybe she'll like me more if I get her involved with the show, and but ultimately kind of, backfired, because that's not what she wanted, and they played to that narrative because you have this contrast, which creates drama, which is what they want.
TV.
And TV, correct.
Yeah.
So I remember one time I'm sitting actually almost 1 foot right over here, because this is where they would interview, and they'd set up the cameras right over here, when you watch it, it's all here. And they were filming, and what they would do is they would film a scene, they would maybe you and I are hanging out and we're talking about it, how are you and her doing? I don't know, and we're filming it. And then what they do is they take that back to the network, and they interview you in real time. So you have to say right now I'm talking to my friend Leo, but it could have been 3 weeks ago, but they have to make it look real for TV, hence reality TV. And, and they're sitting there, and I'm building up to this moment, is they film a scene with Bailey and I, and I remember sitting here, and I had interviewed, and they came back, and what will happen is after the interview, they'll come back, and the network will come back with notes of okay, you said this in your interview, we want you to say this, and a lot, it'd be 2-3 hours, sitting here, saying lines. You say it like this. No, now say it like this. Now kind of say it like this. And you're going through this ringer, and if it was acting, it's ooh, this is fun. But this is my personal life. This is how I'm being portrayed.
Right.
I'm self-aware. I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
I knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting here being portrayed, and I'm like, I know what you're doing. So I'm I'm playing this power struggle, because but don't you want to be famous? Don't you want to be on TV? And and so you're it's we talked about that rock in the hard place earlier. And so the whole point is, I remember they said one line, and they said, okay, we want you to say, Bailey is the girl of my dreams. And I remember I'm I would never say that. That's so stupid. That sounds so stupid. And I remember getting in, to get deep, I would get in arguments with the producers because I was no, I don't want to say that. And no, we have to say it. Well, we have to. We're on a time constraint. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 producers, and then a sound guy, and all on me, just going, do your job. And then we'd have to wait, and we'd be in an argument. And it's almost when you're sitting at a table when at dinner at a restaurant, maybe you're in an argument, and then the lady walks up to fill your water, and so you have to pause, and then she walks away. That's it, because the sound guy would hear a train or a plane. We'd be in it and wait, hold on. Okay, cool. Okay, all right, go on. And so it was just so freaking toxic, and I was just, and then I never watched TV. I was everything's produced.
Yeah,
I get it now. I get this game.
Yeah,
and so. It was just very, it was just a lot, man. I was just
what I like about your story is that it gives the people that are listening and watching this interview this is what it's really like.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to put up with, I mean, it is putting up with that. I mean, it is, that you have to tolerate in order to get this thing shot. I wouldn't know. I mean, I've been around the industry enough, but I still wouldn't have known. I've always wondered about reality shows, how real they really are. I mean, let's just be honest,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so much that goes into making it look that way.
Yeah, and it's nuts, and it's crazy because it seasoned me a little bit though. I learned. I started learning. Like I took everything, and I'm learning what they're doing and what they're saying and how they're doing it. And then I was like, okay, what can I do with this knowledge? And so instead of making this, like I didn't love it. Like I pulled through, and can I share one more thought?
Yeah.
Excerpt from it.
Yeah, no,
That's all right.
I love
Yeah.
it. I saw you get into acting mode. Like you drew me in. Seriously.
Like you're like, oh, well, I'm glad. So I don't know. I'm gonna change her name to kind of protect her, because she was also on the show, but I don't want to like draw attention to her if she doesn't want that.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
So her name's Sarah for now. Okay.
Okay.
So Sarah. So I don't know. I'm just thinking about other people.
I'm into Sarah. Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Sarah's a good name.
So we're filming in all the little, like, they filmed us in California. They flew us out to California. I had never had a per diem before, so I was like, oh, this is cool. So
you're making a whole bunch of money now, right?
Yeah, tons.
Where are you from, by the way, before you tell the story? Where do they fly you from?
From Utah.
Oh, Utah. Okay. All right.
From Provo, Utah.
Okay. Carry on.
They flew us out to California, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. I'm like, yeah, and so we go out there, and we're sitting at a dinner table because they had all of us meet. And it's the most produced thing, but they didn't want it to feel produced. They organically wanted all the cast members to meet because we were all, from different places, right?
Right.
So they flew us out, and they put us up in this hotel, and we're there, and I remember like walking in, and I was like, and I saw like one of the other producers talking to one of the other, and I was like, oh, I know he's a cast member, right? And I was gonna walk over, like, and my producer goes, no, don't talk to him. We want to get that on camera. No. Like, I was like, this is the weirdest freaking thing I've ever done in my life. Yeah,
now you got to remember how you were gonna go up to begin with. Anyway,
right, like acting. Like you never think reality show takes acting, but it does.
Oh man.
And so I remember we're sitting at a table, and Sarah, one of the girls on the show, is sitting there, and I'm talking about my experience with Bailey with this other cast member, and they're filming it, and then they catch Sarah kind of getting emotional, like she's kind of crying and kind of pulling from the story that I'm sharing and relating, obviously.
Yeah.
So the producers catch wind of that, they get really excited, and they look at her and they pull her saying like, hey, what's going on? Because obviously, first and foremost, maybe 1 ounce sliver, they care about what she's feeling, but secondarily, one maybe 2 ounces, we'll give them that, and maybe secondarily, they want to know what she's feeling so they can feed that into her narrative, because it's so authentic, right?
Yeah.
Like the more authentic you can be,
right,
the more they can derive from that. So they go up to her and they go, hey, what's going on? And she goes, can I have just 1 minute alone, like where I can feel and not have to like talk to you guys, and it was like good cop, bad cop, because she's like, oh, okay. And she backs off. And this other producer swings around. He goes, hey, Michelle. Hopefully we
Michael, go ahead.
Hey, Sarah. Like, can we? I hope we can cut that. But sorry. So they're like, hey, Sarah, what's going on? And I literally and I shouldn't have done this. It wasn't professional, but I blew up and I was like, hey, she told you she didn't want to talk, and you told her you were going to give her space. I get that all of us are puppets in this show where you get all our emotions, you know our lives, so you can push the trajectory and the narrative that you want. But for everything, please make this fun for everyone. Give her some space. They got so mad at me.
Really?
Oh yeah, because I was like almost quote unquote reprimanded because they pulled, hey Lee, can we talk to you over here?
No
And they
kidding.
pulled me aside and they got really mad and they were like, hey, like don't, like you can't like do that, or like I was like, what? Like she was feeling something and I stood up for her.
Yeah, I thought that was really authentic. I think that should be the clip in the
Right,
can.
right. Why not? And but obviously like they can't have a producer standing in shot,
Yeah, right.
for that. So and so it was just this thing, and I was like, I'm not mad that I did that, and I'm not mad that I'm in trouble. And I remember, even, and I can go on for hours. They filmed because obviously they want it all to meet. I've never been interested in going to little people conferences. I've never, because I don't feel it necessary to hang out with other little people like all the time, because I have my own life and I have social skills to maintain. And not that there's anything wrong with that if you do, but it's just not my preference. And they filmed it in where this girl Sarah asked me to go, to the LPA conference, and I said, and I was like, I don't want to go though. I don't want to go. And they're like, no, but you have to go because that's part of the show. I'm like, yeah, but that's not authentic to me. Like that's, and they're like, no, but you have to say yes. And I was like, but I don't want to. And like you can, I'm a brat. I don't know, whatever you want to say, but they pushed it. And so I had to say yes. So when I got back and I had to call and talk to the the more executives about like why I wasn't like kind of like not having fun on that trip, I was like, well, I told you guys, I didn't want to go to the LPA thing. So why am I going to fake and be fake and pretend I wanted to be there? Like, of course I can be grateful that I got to travel and grateful I got to experience that and make the most of it. But for my personality, that's not prevalence. And I feel like I represent a group of little people that maybe don't always want to associate with other little people,
Yeah. So on this, this particular reality show, how many episodes and how many seasons did it go?
It only went one season.
Okay. How many episodes?
6 episodes.
Oh, okay. And it was on TLC?
Yes.
That's funny. Okay, so then my other question would be that. By the way, I'm glad that you told those stories. I love that. I mean, I think that really gives me some interesting perspective that I didn't have for sure. As far as moving forward, would you prefer to be someone who acts on the big screen, or would you be someone who wants to do TV, or let's see, what's another platform? Maybe like a talk show host. What would be if you had your druthers, what would it be?
All of them. No. But
yeah, you can't multitask.
I know, I'm trying. I would love to be in a Marvel film. I'd love to be on the big screen, Marvel superhero. I'd love to be on the big screen. That ideally, that's what I want.
So why would you want to be on the big screen? Now I want to know exactly why. Tell me the damn truth, Lee.
Okay. Okay. Wow. You sound like a producer.
Yeah, that's right. I'm your producer. Tell me the truth.
Okay.
Hold anything back. My goodness.
Okay. All right. Well, because like I've always wanted to like get up there and make a name for myself and be up there with the big leagues and because like I had the opportunity to go to like San Diego Comic-Con, and I got to go to an industry party with my friend Josh Shipley, who was a Disney Imagineer for 21 years. And I met like Orlando Bloom was there. I didn't get to talk to him. I didn't even know he was there until I left. Yeah. But I found out he was there, and I was meeting all these people and making all these connections. And I was like, and ultimately, like even like talking to you, for instance, we have a similar energy, and I'm happy when I'm on set. I'm happy when I'm performing, when I'm not holding back or worried that if I'm being overbearing, if you will, because you can, can. I would imagine you relate with being overly energetic to some people because you're so animated, and some people would think it's fake because you're so passionate and pushing, but you're just authentically passionate.
Right. So the big screen, that's where you want to be.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. I think you'd be great on. I think you'd be great on. Is there a certain character that you'd like to play? Any good guy or bad guy, and why? Okay. Well.
All right. So there is so you've heard of the Avengers, I assume.
Yeah.
So there is a Canadian superhero team called Alpha Flight. Now, the reason I bring that up is there is a little person. It's the only little person superhero that I've ever seen that already exists. Ultimately, I'd want to write my own character and do my own thing, and I have my own concepts for things. But ultimately, you have to get big and make a name for yourself before you can do that, effectively. So his name is Puck, and so he's a little person superhero. He's Canadian, and I would love to play him. Like if I got a call and got in and did that, like I'd be like, I did it.
Yeah.
Like I did it, and just because, and I'd be around all those people on set, and then you wouldn't know where it leads, and then you wouldn't know. Just
I know.
Authentically being myself.
Yeah. This brings me back to one little moment that I had with Costner. I was now at this point going to his house down in LA, and I was training him at his house,
Yeah.
And one day he goes, Kevin's just like really authentic, low key. He's pretty real, Kevin is.
Awesome.
And he said, hey, you want to go watch a movie being shot? And it was with Jim Belushi. And again, it was with a dog. I forget the name of the dog's name. Too many years have gone by now. I'm forgetting shit, which it really irritates me, but it is what it is. So we went on set. But what was really cool about that is like, I watched a clip being shot, and that was interesting. And then they took a break because Kevin was there. So Belushi, Kevin, and myself went in Belushi's trailer. And, for that moment right there, I was just like, now this is for me, being able to hang with these guys here. That was a pretty cool moment,
Right.
And I think that's what got me thinking that, I want to be an actor. I want all this treatment. And of course, I learned the reality of that, which we talked about. So let me ask you this, Lee. Now, let's go back to your when's the last time you did a workout? This morning? Yesterday?
Yeah. About a week ago, if I'm honest.
Okay.
I'm getting like, I'm like, okay, be real, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so where do you go from here with your training and with your career now? We've had a nice little chat. I think we've gotten a feeling of who you are. But okay, when we hang up from this great talk that we had today, what is Lee going to do? What's your next steps here?
Well, real talk. I want to. I have a little bit of debt that I got to pay off. I got to pay off that debt, grow my savings, get boost up, and then move. Ultimately move to LA.
Yeah.
I have some connections there with some opportunities, that I want to capitalize on. So right now I've got to save that money, and because it's the not fun part, right? Like I've got to dig down, get that stuff taken care of. It's not the fun part. Like it's not very flashy, but it's just the real thing that I got to get done, dig down and get taken care of, and then go attack my dreams, get back and get down to, 4% body fat again. No, I'm just kidding. But not, get shredded again because I love it. And just, I was kind of, real talk. I've been kind of depressed and kind of in a darker place, and I'm kind of coming out of it. And, you have ups and downs, and I'm kind of coming up again, and I'm getting animated and very goal focused. So you were really talking to me at this peak time where I'm really getting back at it and getting the opportunity to talk to you and get interviewed by you and have this thing just tells me even more that I'm doing the right things.
You are.
I'm getting emotional. Like I was like I'm gonna call my dad after. I'm like, Dad, I just got off this cool podcast again. What did I tell you? I'm just so happy, like in this moment presently. So I've got to dig down, move forward, get some debt paid off, get some more work in, get my physique back to where I want it.
Yep.
And just get back at it.
And again, we talked at the top of the show, life is always going to test you, and you're responding to the test. And if I can share one thing with you, because young man, what I have on you now is not necessarily that I'm smarter than you, but I'm definitely older than you. And my dad used to tell me this stuff all the time. And I say, whatever. But I can tell you this, if you keep your eye, if you operate your life with passion that's always going to play out in, I think, a positive way, especially when you combine that. And I'm going to use a little athletic metaphor. Keep your eye on the goal. Keep your eye on the ball. If you keep your eye on the ball long enough, Lee, guess what? It's just a matter of time. But you got to be willing to get knocked on your ass, here and there. You're going to get thrown out of the pathway for just a moment, but you're going to get back. Well, you're saying what you're going to do, man. You're getting back into it. You're refocusing. Well, guess what? That's the pathway that we all go on, no matter if you're a Kevin Costner or somebody who's just starting out in the industry. That's the way it works, as far as I'm concerned. So let me ask you this before we leave. I really enjoyed talking to you, by the way. I like your animation. I think you're really cool. Is there anything that you would like to promote other than yourself? I mean, feel free on this program. Is there anything that you'd like to promote to the audience that maybe that they could find you on the internet or anything like that?
So
Website?
the main thing I want to put energy towards right now is I just shot a proof of concept for a film called Lumeria, and that's spelled Lumeria. And that's Lumeria. So we got it in a Utah Film Festival, and we got it. We're getting trying to get some traction for it. We'll have a showing for it. But any support people can show towards that project, because we want to turn that into a feature.
Yeah.
Turn that into a feature in a bigger project would be amazing. Following me on Instagram would be amazing at Lee_Liston, Liston would be phenomenal. I have a YouTube channel called Little Guy Learns, where I learn things on the spot, candidly, that I've never done before. Like my friend Devin Supertramp, who's a big YouTuber, taught me how to glide cam, and and he taught me how to glide, and I had never done it, and I learned on camera from him. No fake or no pre-practice. Just I wanted to show people what it's like to go through a learning process. So that's what I would like to promote.
Beautiful. Well, we'll do that. And again, I'm really happy that you came on. I love learning about other people and their story, and you have a great one. And so I want to just reach out and tell you continued success. I have an old saying. I did come up with these sayings, and one of the sayings I just came up with, and maybe I stole from somebody, I don't know, but I'm going to make it my own. I said, potential is what we can become, but reality is a fickle bitch. And I guess what I mean by that is that, don't be afraid to try to reach your potential, because most people don't, because they get afraid, because it's a way out for some people, to ease your way out. But listen, I think at the end of the day, because this is the way I felt, if you put everything that you've got into what you want to do, and even if it doesn't work out the way you wanted it, if you could say, I didn't leave anything, I left it all in the field. I didn't leave anything on the table, because something, you walk away from that saying, oh, look, I did what I could. There's no regrets, and here's how it ended up. Because you don't know. But that shouldn't be the reason why you don't try. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay, that's the old man giving maybe you some, hopefully a life lesson, although I don't think I have to. You got it, man. You've got the energy. And I said, just keep moving forward, huh?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been such a treat, and I'm going to be riding off this energy for the rest of the day. And
beautiful.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right on, Lee. You take care. We'll talk again, okay?
I would love that.
All right. See ya.